What's good, everyone? Marcus back again, and I just wanted to wrap up my experience with Jeff Nippard's power building program. As you may know, I've gone through all three of his programs, and I've shared some of my experiences with those programs in the past. So this won't be an in-depth look at any of those programs per se, but just more of an overall sense after having completed all three of those programs. Additionally, I just want to talk about my next new programming and the direction I'm headed in for the rest of the year and possibly beyond. But I do have some ideas, and I wanted to toy with some of those and get your thoughts on it as well. So as you recall, I started his Power Building 1 program last year, finished up with Power Building 2 toward the end of the year, had some fantastic gains on both of those programs. I wasn't too crazy about his Power Building 2 program for various reasons. It was just a little bit tough for me to adapt to, and part of that could be because I decided to try the 6-day-a-week programming, and that was tough to get used to after having been used to 4-day-a-week programming. So that was some adaptability problems on my end, but there were also some exercises and variations that I wasn't crazy about. Nonetheless, I seem to have done the best with Power Building 2 phase in terms of actual gains for deadlift anyway, because I hit a PR of 375 with that. And from Power Building 2 to Power Building 3 phase, I only gained an extra 10 pounds on my PR for deadlift. So nothing to balk at, still not as impressive of gains as I did for Power Building Phase 1 and 2 programs. However, my squat has increased quite a bit, and probably equal amounts through all three phases of the programming. No complaints on that regard. Bench press has been troublesome for me in pretty much all of these programs, and you may recall I put out an improvement video for ways to improve bench press. That worked for me, and I'm really happy with the gains there. So my PR for bench press was 290. That was pretty nice to see, and I think I could have definitely gotten over 300 had I not had to deal with plaguing injuries for 5-6 months or so. But either way, the program is really good. There are some aspects of it that are really powerlifting based, and the other aspects where there was some hypertrophy in there with higher rep ranges. There were also a lot of new variations like this Anderson squat, which was really tough to get in under the bar and start to squat from the bottom of the range of motion. So that's definitely something new to me. There were a few of these different exercises that were new to me like this, and I appreciate the variation because it keeps from that same repetitive training that can get boring after a while. So variation is good in my opinion. Of course, you stick with the staples, the squat, bench, and deadlift, but a lot of the accessory exercises like the triceps extensions, the Helms rows, Nordic ham curls, all those things, they were all challenging but all fun. I think it was a pretty well thought out program that covered the full body in a lot of ways. You know, you had leg extensions, you had ab work, you had calf work, you had biceps, triceps, traps, you had the whole 9 yards. There was nothing that was really missing from the programming in my opinion. The progression that was developed into the programming was definitely adequate in my opinion. There was good solid growth throughout. There was good progression throughout. There was also some deload here and there. Even though most programs are from 10 to 13 weeks, depending on which phase of the program you're running, they're pretty much the same. And I actually repeated two of the programs. I repeated phase 1 to a degree, and I repeated phase 3 to a degree. I started to repeat phase 2, but I ended up cutting that short just to begin phase 3. And that had a little bit to do with the fact that I wasn't too crazy about phase 2. So I just decided to move on to phase 3 since that was already available. And I did kind of recycle the end of phase 3 just so I could line up my testing week with the Garage Gym competition test week. And that worked out well. From that point on, I just moved into the next phase, which is something I've been eager to try for a very long time, and that is the Juggernaut AI programming. And of course, my delay or hesitation in that was monthly fee programming. Wasn't crazy about that because we all have a ton of monthly fees that kind of nickel and dime you along the way, whether it's streaming programmings or whatever. It's just a little bit too much, so I was resistant, but I've heard so many good things. As you know, Brandon put out a really thorough review and series on his experience with the Juggernaut AI training, and that really just put the icing on the cake for me, letting me really get a good sense of the program and definitely motivated me to get into that programming. So once the Garage Gym competition test was over, I decided to get the app using his discount code, which is always beneficial. And I'm in my first 2-week bridge block phase of the program before I move into hypertrophy blocks. Now, with this programming, I decided to go with power building for Juggernaut AI rather than powerlifting, which was, again, similar to what I've been doing, but expands on it a little bit. And I am definitely appreciating the fact that the Juggernaut AI power building program has more accessories, has much more high rep, high set work than I was getting with Jeff Nippard's power building program. And that's not to knock Jeff Nippard's power building program at all, because as I said, it was effective and definitely thorough, but that was a good segue, honestly, to moving into the Juggernaut AI power building program, because it got me a little bit prepared and used to what this kind of style of programming was going to entail. Everything went well with the power building program. As I said, my testing for garage gym competition went pretty well. I was pretty happy with all of my results. I had a PR of 290 on the bench. I had a PR of 365 on the squat, and I had a PR of 385 on the deadlifts. So again, deadlifts was only a 10-pound increase. The squat was about a 20-pound increase, and the bench was only 15 pounds, but I think that is significant. I think that's a large increase for my bench, considering I was plagued with the shoulder injury for months. So that's definitely nothing to balk at either. Getting back into the Juggernaut AI program, I'm really happy with the program. I am still getting used to it, getting used to the app, getting used to the rhythm, getting used to the amount of reps, the amount of sets. Even the rest periods for the Juggernaut AI are completely different. With Jeff Nippard's power building program, the rest that's recommended in between certain sets, especially the compound lifts, is 3 to 5 minutes. With Juggernaut AI, the rest is anywhere from 60 to 90 seconds, which is completely different. That was something I was used to with my hypertrophy work in the past when I was doing more bodybuilding style training, and it's just something I haven't done for literally over 2 years. So it's definitely taken me some time to get used to, but it's keeping my heart rate up. It's definitely helping me to have some serious training sessions, burning quite a lot of calories. Just yesterday, I burned about 1,700 calories total for the day. About 1,200 of that seemed to be just from the workout. So I'm very happy with that aspect. I am starting to lose a little bit of weight also. That trending downward, which is good because I had put on more weight than I really wanted, but I wasn't concerned with that because I was just hoping to maintain a certain amount of muscle mass throughout my power building training leading up to the garage gym competition. My mistake last year in 2021 was starting a fat burning cut phase right before the garage gym competition, and I realized I lost a lot of muscle mass and strength and tested poorly during that session. So I wanted to make sure I didn't make that same mistake. Going into this one, I maintained my weight and maintained muscle mass, so that's why my test results were much better this year than they were last year. So lesson learned. So as you just saw there, I did fail my first PR attempt for the garage gym competition with squats, but damn straight I went for the same weight because I knew in calculations what I was supposed to be able to achieve, and I trusted that my work in the program was going to get me to where I needed to be, so I went right for the same weight attempt. And here you can see I hit the 290 for my bench press. A little bit of a grinder, but not too bad after having hit 285 right before that. This was my last warm-up for my deadlift on a separate day, and unfortunately that was the last thing that was caught on camera because my actual lift of 385 before this one didn't record, and I tried a second time. I just had nothing left in the tank, so I couldn't actually capture it on film, but it was there. Now, the nice thing was for this year, my honey was able to actually participate because she was interested in participating. And this kind of kicked off some motivation for her to keep going with the training. And so she's actually doing a modified version of the Juggernaut AI with me, which is pretty cool. I am actually considering competing at an IPA powerlifting event later this year in York, Pennsylvania, or maybe some other event. But at the very least, I will compete at the next garage gym competition in November. As I said, I'm in the bridge block, which is 2 weeks. And this is my second and final week right now. Next week, I start my hypertrophy block. I may decide to switch from power building to powerlifting in the Juggernaut AI app, but that remains to be seen at this point, because one thing I can't yet determine, and I'll check with Brandon on this, it seems like once you switch your training style, it kind of erases what you've done in the past and moves you into a new training phase starting from the beginning, scratch. That's not a problem either, really. It's just something I can adapt to, but it would be nice to be able to kind of switch between power building and powerlifting, like every 2 weeks, where you can get in powerlifting for 2 weeks or a month, and then power building for 2 weeks or a month, and switch back and forth, so you can kind of optimize both methods while not losing track of the other. But anyway, with the Juggernaut AI, I'm really happy with the variety and exercise here. It lets you choose, swap things out if you don't like them. This is pause squats, which you see here, which is something I haven't been doing often in the previous program. Spottle press is another one. So I'm pretty happy with the variety. Also, I'm doing deficit deadlifts, which is really the first time I'm training these regularly. I've only done those once or twice in the past, just experimental. So this is something new that's going to help me hopefully build my strength off the floor. So one of the questions I wanted to pose to you was something I was considering for myself. Do I continue with powerlifting, or do I go back into hypertrophy training, which is something I had done for many, many years? In fact, 2020 was the first time I really trained powerlifting style to begin with, and I've grown to like it, which is why I stuck with it for the last 2 years. But I think it's time for change, and the power building program with Juggernaut AI will kind of coincide well with the extra cardio I want to do to get back into a cardio phase. So let me know your thoughts with a comment in the description. As always, I appreciate you watching. Peace out.